Hey, welcome everybody to Out Comes the Sun Radio, my podcast with my wonderful co-host and best friend, Melissa Yamaguchi. We are here. We are coming to you from Southern California. It's beautiful here. We are coming to you on Dash Radio, on Spotify, on YouTube, on Apple, on all those amazing places. Yeah, so it's kind of nice. We've got, it's 2024, which is it's so crazy because I do that thing and I do it every year and I've done it since I was a teenager where I make the mistake of writing 2023, like when I'm writing in my journal, or I'm like, oh, oops, 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 oops. I don't know. Nobody writes checks anymore, but if I was writing checks, I'd be writing them for the wrong year. Anyway, that's all.
Hey,
That's
I
my
got something to share with you. Speaking of writing,
okay. Good.
listen, you said writing, and I learned something last night. The University of Norway Science and Technology did a recent survey study, not just survey, on the impact of writing. We've
Oh,
always learned
actual
about the
handwriting.
actual physical handwriting, and we've always known about the importance of as far as tactile learning, why it's so important for kids to touch stuff. And little kids, they have those sensory boards, or they'll play with Play-Doh, or they put their fingers in spaghetti, whatever it is they're doing to teach them about their sensory perception. But they did a study with, I can't remember if it was 36 or 46 university students over a period of time, studying the neurological effects of handwriting, physical pen to paper, as opposed to the digital, because pen and paper are being replaced by keyboard and smart pen or whatever it is, the screens and the keyboard. But they investigated the neural network in the brain during hand versus typewriting, and then they showed the studies, and they found that connectivity between all different brain regions are more elaborate when the letters are formed by hand. Now, I remember when my kids were little, sometimes they would confuse their B's and their D's.
Mhm.
So my mom, a former educator, told me to get a cookie sheet and place something inside of it, like, I don't remember if it was Jello powder. I don't remember what. I think it might have been some kind of probably not good for you powder. But I put it in there, and then my daughter and son would lick their finger and they would trace the B's and the D's, because it was
Right.
that stimulation with their fingers and going over the thing, the lettering that
Yeah.
helped it form. So what they found is that it's better for memory building, information coding, spelling accuracy, and memory recall.
Interesting. Well, it makes so much sense because my I can't remember who it was in my kind of past that would, when computers were first coming out and the whole God, that's sad. But like people were having laptops and all that kind of thing. And I remember saying I wanted to do my journal by typing it because it would be faster. Said it's not good, it's not good for you. I think he was a spiritual teacher. I don't know, whatever. But he was like, it's not, you're not making the connection and the energy of what you're writing is it like writers should oftentimes writers should do a lot of longhand when they're thinking about ideas, coming up with things, even though, I'm sure, I don't know, probably 90% of them are doing it on a laptop from the
Yeah.
very beginning. But it's very interesting. It makes a lot of sense because we're so physiologically connected brain wise. I mean, you
Yeah.
think of brain, body, mind connection,
Hmm.
that is a clear, defined, like if you write with your hand, your brain is connected to that sensory
Yeah.
thing. It makes so much sense to me. But it makes me think of when we were kids, writing was such a big part of our childhood. Like,
Oh yeah.
it's not a part of kids' childhoods anymore because I think they don't even teach handwriting anymore.
They
Is
do
that
to a degree, like
true?
little kids, they had the A's and all the letters all around, capital and small,
Yeah.
all around the room, so little children can practice, but they're still finding they're practicing on tablets. The only thing that some of the study is saying that they're trying to encourage teachers to, at the very least, let them have that electronic pen. And it's
At
not the
least,
same. It's not quite the same, but at least it's better than them just
well, it's
typing it
something.
out.
And also I think it's a real tragedy. I don't know why, but I do think it's a tragedy that kids are not taught cursive. We were taught
Oh,
cursive. It was a big deal. I mean, I think I was telling you this morning when we were talking, I used to write up and down, super slanty, like it was a thing. It was a thing as you were growing up to find your style. It was
find your
kind of like
style.
finding your, your autograph, or the
Yeah.
way that you wrote your signature. It was all, yeah.
Listen, some of the most beautiful
So many
handwriting, some of the most
yeah.
beautiful calligraphy is amazing. And I've always tried to practice calligraphy, and it looks like an EKG. I don't know what the hell I'm writing. But I had two women that I knew. One is a lady by the name of Natty who used to work with my company. And remember the old honeymooners when Art Carney would start like getting himself ready before he'd write, and Ralph Cameron would be like, "Go, yeah, to the moon!" Like he'd get mad and like, "Yada yada," and he would like, "Give me a minute, Ralphie boy," and he'd start like writing. That's how Natty was. She'd get her arms ready, she'd start writing, and it's like she was winding up before she'd start
Yeah,
writing. But her handwriting, people used to flock around to watch her write because it was so exquisite. The second person
I
who,
know. I mean, my mother had beautiful handwriting, and she was a secretary and a great typist, but her handwriting, it was just a thing. We grew
yes,
up that her generation grew up with it big,
yes,
but it was very important to our, I don't know. I think it was important to our socialization too, and the way that we connected with
I
other
think it
people.
speaks about who you are. They used to do handwriting analysis, so you could tell a lot about
I know.
somebody, right?
Now,
I was going to tell you about
that
the
doesn't
second
even
person I had who wrote
say,
exquisitely. It was my
yeah.
Latin teacher, and her handwriting was so incredibly exquisite. We all wanted to write like her. It was so beautiful, and her name was Minnie Bell Churchill. So if your name is Minnie Bell Churchill, you better make it look pretty, because Minnie Bell
Yeah,
Churchill, that's a lot. But it was it was a whole thing. Writing it, you could tell so much about her. She was proper.
yeah.
She was very consistent. I mean, everything you're looking at the way she wrote, that's who she was.
I
And
love that. I
yeah, I
love
do
that
too.
because, and also signatures are such a powerful and important thing. What's really interesting is I used to change my signature all the time. And at one point I had an artist friend, and I did an M, a straight line, an H, a straight line, and then like some weird that it was very weird. Um, but what was cool is I landed on a signature that I still have to this day, but I didn't know that it was very, and this will sound like self-adulation. I don't mean it to, and I'm not bragging, but it's very much like my grandpa. And I never
Wow.
knew it until I had like really settled on this signature. And then I was looking at an old book, Old Man the Sea or something. And I saw his signature. I was like, oh my gosh, how crazy.
Crazy.
My signature was so similar. Not, I mean, but it was kind of an up and down kind of thing. And I wonder if that's genetic or something. I
It
wish
could be something to
the
that.
writing part of
I
it.
have nephews that do weird little things that we pick up and like, God, you never met your great grandfather. How would you know to do that? Like he used to do that. So I think
I
there's got to
know.
be
I
something
think
to
there's
that.
something to be said.
Oh
I wish
yeah.
I got more of the writing part of it, talent
Yep.
thing.
I'm going to get out a cookie sheet and put some powder in it and get myself. I become confused between millionaire, billionaire, and trillionaire. So I got to get myself back on track that way. I got to figure that out, Mariel.
How many is it? Oh, that's exhausting.
How many
Anyway,
zeros can a
but
zero
yeah,
make when a zero makes you rich? I don't know.
this is an interesting guest today. He is a doctor and a chiropractor, and he has created a red light therapy bed.
Hmm.
Pretty interesting. It's a very interesting conversation that we had a couple days ago with him, and we're gonna get into that right now. So stay with us because we have Dr. Carl Rothschild, next. Welcome back, everybody. We have such a great guest. I'm super excited. We have Dr. Carl Rothschild, but we call him Dr. Carl. And he specializes in red light therapy. And I know this firsthand because my significant other, Bobby, Williams, whom Melissa knows so well, too well, perhaps. We have just gotten one for our Stratosphere Lab location, and we also have one for we have a location in Malibu that we're going to do Stratosphere and Williams Hemingway and, you know, all that kind of cool stuff. Anyway, this red light therapy is really quite extraordinary, isn't it, Dr. Carl?
It is. To get right into it, about myself, so you can understand how maybe I moved into this. I started as a chiropractor in 1978, so 46 years, give or take. And about 26 years ago, I was introduced to red light therapy. And I will tell you, it revolutionized my practice. And I didn't go in there going, oh, this is going to be the greatest thing. You're telling me that if I shine a light on somebody's body, it's going to make a difference. I didn't believe it, but I was fortunate enough to at least try it, and it just changed everything for me. I was able to heal things I never believed possible before.
Personally, for yourself?
No, for my patients.
For your patients. Okay.
I've had 15 practices. I wouldn't say I had any issues that I can think of that I did it on. And you know what? The people who are most crazy about this stuff are the ones, yes, that did get healed themselves. So I've never witnessed it on myself, but I can't help the fact that people contacting me on a regular basis and going, Doc, you didn't tell me it could do this and that and all these other things. And it's pretty remarkable. And we'll get into that in a second. But so I started, but what happened was when I first started in red light therapy, at first I want to tell you what red light therapy means. When we say the word red light therapy, what we're really talking about is a combination of red light, which has a very specific wavelength within the rainbow, and then near infrared, which is a unique wavelength unto itself. So when people think of the word infrared, they're really talking about far infrared. Far infrared is about heat. It's about a fancy way of driving heat deep into the body, which chiropractors use. But it's not going to have any long-lasting effect. Near infrared is that miraculous wavelength that has been shown to act, and we're going to get into how that works. It actually changes the body structurally and assists in so many different ways. Wow. So I just wanted to straighten out the word far infrared versus near infrared. The only thing those two things have in common are the same last name, but they're so different. I wanted to make sure you understand that. So when you hear about infrared,
can I interrupt you 1 second? In your trifecta bed, red light bed, do you have far infrared and red light?
We have no far infrared.
You have far infrared.
It's red. We have 2 wavelengths of red and 2 wavelengths of near infrared.
Near infrared. Okay,
Right.
and explain the difference of that. What is that?
So far infrared is just about getting heat.
Heat, right.
So a toaster or far infrared, when people say infrared sauna, they're talking about a far infrared sauna. And it generates heat. It's a different way of generating heat, and that's fine. But from the perspective and point of view of healing, it doesn't do any long-lasting changes. So maybe I should just get into how it works.
Okay, good.
And then we'll jump around a little bit. They didn't know. I mean, they started research on how light could possibly change and help 50 years ago. And all they knew for all these years, 50 years of study, there has never been a recorded side effect. That's what we know for sure. You couldn't hurt somebody with this if you tried. But what they didn't know is, well, what was the mechanism that seemed to help tissues heal? And what they then discovered, now think about this, every part of your body is made up of tissues, every tissue is made up of cells, and every cell has within it these mitochondria. And you've heard that term perhaps. It's much more popular of a term over these last few years than ever before. And it has to do with the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the body. It's the reason why you eat and the reason why you breathe oxygen. Oxygen and food combination. I'm not going to go through the whole long Krebs cycle and all that stuff. But in essence, what it does is it generates energy for your body. And it's the difference between health and disease. It's the difference between health and death.
Isn't mitochondria the specific to the cell? Isn't mitochondria is the power of the cell?
Yes.
but therefore
Okay.
it emanates and becomes, in essence, it's the powerhouse of your whole body. So yes, it is the powerhouse of the cell for sure. And so each cell, so again, we're all made up of tissues. Every tissue has cells, and within every cell are mitochondria. Now, when I went to school long time ago, it was a notion that each cell had one mitochondria. But in fact, the heart, for example, has over 5,000 mitochondria in each of the heart cells because of the demand of energy is so strong. When you have mitochondrial dysfunction, you're going to wind up with a lack of energy and eventually could lead to disease. So this is all about bringing the mitochondria back to health, bringing the mitochondria back to well-being. It's not about putting anything in the body that does not belong there. And it's not about yanking anything out that does belong there. It's about bringing the body back to normal. And so when we talk about that, we can talk about, since every tissue is involved, we're talking about every possibility.
May I interrupt? I want to say it's fast. I'm glad that you brought that up, what you just said, because when I was doing research on red light therapy, and I didn't delve into the near or far, I was just looking into red light therapy. And one of the things it talked about is a photodynamic therapy that can destroy some of the cells. And so sometimes red light therapy has been used for cancer or scar tissues or any kind of issues that are going on with the skin. And so a question I have for you is red light therapy, when utilized to minimize scar tissue or to delve into some kind of issue with acne or so forth, is that in spot treatment only?
I want you to discount everything how do I say this
Everything
nicely?
has been said.
It's not true. So let's start off with my book. I wrote the book. And so why did I write the book? It's called Illuminated Healing. And I don't make any money off of this. This is whatever profit goes from it goes to charity. I wrote it to get the story straight. Are you kidding me? On the skin, for example, if we put somebody with this light therapy on them, I almost don't care what that is, going to heal the heck out of it. Whether it's, now I'm not talking about my device per se. I got to be careful here because making claims drives some people crazy. So I'm reporting the news. I'm not making claims. The news is, listen carefully. I don't care what your skin issue is. Get in that treatment, that bed, and you will be shocked. I don't care if it's psoriasis, eczema, dermatitis. I don't care if it's advanced acne. We have rare hereditary diseases that people are talking about. We've seen wonderful results with it.
But it's also affecting inflammation, correct? And also, and I want to, and I'm doubling up on this question because I think it's really important. You may or may not know, Dr. Carl, that our show has a lot to do with mental health. So, I know that light is incredibly effective on, for mental health reasons.
Absolutely.
So if you have got light with red light and you've got the ability to reduce inflammation, you can reduce neuroinflammation. Am I correct?
Absolutely. But let me tell you, there's a whole different dynamic we're going to put inflammation aside. If you have inflammation, you better use red light therapy. If you have skin issues, you got to use red light therapy. I'm going to tell you stories you're not going to believe. Again, I'm just talking about the news. But if you go to, it's great that I have an organized thing that I'm going to go over. It never works out. So if you were to review, if you just go to scholar.google.com, I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. It's Google, but it's a scholarly version of it. So we're going to put in red light therapy and emotions, mental health, whatever.
Right.
The results with mental health is unbelievable and is not necessarily about inflammation. It's about changes to the brain. So you can look up the research on Google Scholar, and you will see wonderful results with changes in the brain that are going to assist it, not necessarily about inflammation. So let's talk about inflammation as long as we're on that subject. We're healing the mitochondria. We're healing the body by bringing the mitochondria back to normal. and therefore inflammation will be reduced. It'll get to the underlying problem. Chiropractors really are more interested in the underlying problem, more so than getting rid of that symptom. So if someone comes into my office and they have a headache, and the only concern they have is getting rid of the headache, but not the underlying problem, obviously it's going to keep coming back. So I would jokingly tell my patients, I can get rid of any pain you ever have. I'll knock you over the head with a hammer. You won't feel a thing. But is that really what we're going for? What are we shooting for here? Let's find out what structurally or inherently underlying underneath all this is the issue. And so that's what we do. That's what a chiropractor wants to do. And now we can do it better than ever before, because we're getting to the actual bottom line, getting to mitochondria, getting them back to normal function. And we're seeing and witnessing. Let me give you an example. I'll read this thing that I have on the top of my computer because this is important. It says, this is a lady wrote me an email. It says, if this is how normal people feel every day, I can't believe I've been missing out all this time. Now, why did she write that? Prior to her getting in the bed and using red light therapy, she was unbelievably depressed, suicidally, if there's such a word, depressed. And now she's not.
Wow. That's huge.
Let's
That's huge. I know for myself that I've used red light therapy personally when I was living in Idaho, and Melissa knows this really well. And it was dark and it was cold for many, many months. And using red light therapy was really, it's a game changer. So that's exciting. I love when people have results just from things that they can, get into a chamber or a light bed like yours, or even just a panel, anything like that. It's heartwarming that somebody can get help from something like light. It's extraordinary.
But I want to explain something to you. So 25 years ago, I started getting heavily involved with light therapy. And what we learned over the years was that by covering and bathing the entire body at the same time made a big difference. So I was involved with lasers, and I was involved with panels and pads and things on the wall and bulbs in the whatever, all that stuff. And we had nice results with it. And then COVID forced us into the bed because my practitioners were saying, we want less physical contact between the patient and the provider. And you can get in and out of bed yourself. You don't need staff. And so the person gets in the bed, they get out of bed, you go goodbye, and that's it. So that we eliminated that. We never anticipated the kind of results we're hearing because we bathed the entire body at the same time. So for example, let's take Arnett. He was having a heart attack once, if not twice a week. I'm just telling you the news, not making claims here, telling you the news about Arnett. Now, for 13 years, he was dying. I mean, imagine having a heart attack that frequently. And they had implanted 13 years ago a defibrillator into his chest. Now, why did they do that? Every time he would die, his heart would stop, it would zap him back to life. And it would work, eventually it was coming down as often as twice a week. And the practitioner calls me up and says, look, I got a guy coming tomorrow who's having regular heart attacks. Should I even treat him? And I said, just treat him for 5 minutes and stay in the room the whole time. That night, that patient went home and had the most remarkable results. I'm going to say it. He had his first erection that he hadn't had one for 13 years, not expectedly, but there was just an indication that things were different. And he hasn't had a heart attack since. That was almost a year ago.
Wow.
So that's just one of many, many different news articles I can go over with you of people. I don't care what part of their body is. There's 9 divisions to this technology: face, fat, and healing. That's why it was called the trifecta. Face, fine lines and wrinkles, and anything on the skin from head to toe, including raised precancerous moles. We're seeing great results with those. Fat, we actually can assist with fat loss and healing. But then the other 6 divisions includes men's health, women's health. So women will commonly women will talk about hair at the bottom of the drain after they take a shower, that they're starting to thin out. And within a month of using red light therapy, that gets reversed. They're also talking about reducing cysts on an ovary, or any kind of painful periods or endometriosis, we're hearing wonderful things about that. So again, men's health, women's health, athletes. If you're an athlete and you get in the bed before your activity, you will perform much better. And then if you get in the bed after your activity, you will recover much quicker and much more thoroughly.
What about like structural issues? Does it affect any kind of structural things in the, like people that have, low back problems, hip problems?
Absolutely. So
Really?
if somebody has, I'm going to liken it to a bullet in their body, a bullet in there. I don't care how many red light treatments you got to get the bullet out of there. And if someone has a misaligned spine, we can red light them until we're blue in the face. They probably need to have an alignment. So we're not saying this and you don't have to do anything else. You don't have to eat right. You don't have,
Right.
I'm not saying that. You got to eat right. You got to exercise. You got to take care of yourself, at least moderately. And then include red light therapy. Now I'm 71 years old and I'm going to be getting in that bed 3 times a week for the rest of my life. Not because I have issues, but guess what? I don't want any issues.
Right. I have a question for you. One of you mentioned helping with weight loss, and I had read on your site that some people have touted like a 2-inch weight loss, and I'm curious because one of the new things, as I'm sure you know, that's on the market are the semaglutides, and one of the latest reports in the white papers that have come out about semaglutides is that they can help with addiction issues because they're suppressing that addictive response, right? But then I also, and I'm sure you'll correct me if it's wrong, I'd also read that some doctors have utilized red light therapy. I can't confess if it's near regular or far, but red light therapy in the treatment of people with some addiction. Have you heard anything at all about that?
Absolutely. In fact, we are very close to having a facility down in the San Diego area for veterans.
Mhm.
And not only do they have addiction issues, but they have PTSD and a variety of other things. And we're going to show that this is going to be unbelievably helpful for them.
It's amazing.
But I wanted to mention that, again, it's a global thing. You're healing the entire body or you're helping the entire body. So we're not doing spot, like I said, I used to use lasers. We never heard these kind of things of multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, dementia, Alzheimer's. Do you know how many stars have all these things? And my wife goes crazy. She said, I'll mention Bruce Willis. She's trying to get a hold of Bruce Willis and say, get in the bed. We'll help you tremendously. Neil Diamond. We just saw Christina Applegate with her multiple sclerosis.
Right.
What we see across the board when you get this type of therapy, full body red light therapy, again, that's a combination of near infrared and red. What we're seeing is that we halt the progression of the multiple sclerosis. Now, multiple sclerosis is like a cavity that's eating away nerve tissue. And what we're doing is we're halting that progression. Never mind whether we can reverse that. We don't know yet. But we know for sure we're halting the progression. So if we can get somebody before they're too far gone, we can get them so much better with the multiple sclerosis, with the Parkinson's, dementia, Alzheimer's, and all that.
I'm sorry, interrupt, but perhaps you can explain why it's having this effect on so many like major diseases and things that people are suffering from. Can you explain why light is affecting those conditions? What is it that it's affecting? Is it inflammation? Is it, what is it? In multiple sclerosis, what is it that it is affecting? Do they know, or is it just?
No, they do know. It's about the mitochondria.
Yes. Is it enhancing the mitochondrial function? Is that what's taking place?
Or is it activating mitochondrial function in your body?
Yes. And then when you do that, I had a plastic surgeon I was working with who has long COVID. He's a mess. And what I was telling him, not only have we heard great things about long COVID, but also post-jab or post-vaccinations, people having horrible, not a lot, but some people have reactions to it and they respond very nicely to red light therapy. And when I was telling him these things, he said, it sounds like snake oil. And he didn't want to trust it because it sounded too like I was saying yes to everything. And the truth is, every tissue of your body is made up of cells. Every cell has mitochondria, and every mitochondria, if it's exposed to this light, will come back to life. And that's just just the way I'm going to express that. So I apologize if it sounds like snake oil. But with that said, you just got to try it. Listen, I'm going to tell you something. In the 50 years, as I said, there's never been a recorded side effect. You get in the bed 6 times. That's all it takes to see a difference. I'm not saying you'll be done. You might need many more than that, but 6 visits, typically you will see from the beginning to that end of that 6th visit, you'll see a change, and you'll see, if minimum, a light at the end of the tunnel of something that you've been experiencing. Well, we had this one lady that her embarrassment was, imagine she had Parkinson's, and her only main disability, we'll call it, is what she complained about, is that when she went to church, she couldn't hold the Bible because her hands would shake so much from the tremors. And within 2 weeks, that stopped. And the tremors, I shouldn't say stopped, they were minimal at that point. And she was able to hold the Bible. What I'm saying to you is that I have yet to hear of a condition, really, that we haven't heard very nice news about.
How well, and what are the reports of success that you have with increasing circulation? So if someone has neuropathy, or they're having issues in their body with circulation, because I would imagine if it's enhancing that mitochondrial function, then that would be part of the process of getting the cells moving, that their blood circulation is so much better. Do you have results with, have you had good results with neuropathy?
Well, you're asking a couple of different questions. Neuropathy is not necessarily a circulatory problem. It could be a neurological problem.
Neurological, right.
And
So we answer both of them.
Let's take example of Joey, who couldn't walk for 15 years with his severe neuropathy. He had he had Charcot-Marie tooth disease. And it's this weird thing that gave him not only neuropathy, but he couldn't walk, and he was in pain every day. And after 6 sessions, he's on a treadmill, he's walking, everything changed for him after 6 sessions on that therapy. So the bottom line is, I don't care what the condition is. And again, in this case, it's not about increased circulation per se. That's going to happen because the person is getting overall healthier. Talk about Arnett, and his circulation is through the roof. His health is through the roof. And he was having heart attacks every week, or, once or twice a week. But it also goes to people who have, let's say, for example, constant diarrhea, 20 years of diarrhea. We're hearing regularly that within a couple of weeks, that will calm down, and within a month it stops. So there's almost, like I said, but I wanted to tell you there were 2 mechanisms, and I didn't. Again, I'm jumping around here, but there's one mechanism, and that's about the healing, and that's the mitochondria. There's a completely different mechanism that they discovered about 12 years ago that's about fat loss. It's not about mitochondria here. Here, it's about what they learned was an element of red light, and it's the reason why our beds are integrated with both red and near infrared. Near infrared is more healing. Red is somewhat healing, but it does a lot for the fat loss. In fact, near infrared doesn't do anything for fat loss. So getting back to red and fat loss, what they learned was that the cells of the fat cells, the walls of the fat cells, actually become porous for a short period of time and allow some of the contents to leak out of the fat cells. And so they didn't know that in the beginning. They just noticed that if they were going to do liposuction, for example, if they did light therapy before they did liposuction, that the fat came out easier. They didn't know why, but it started a whole new process and a whole new mechanism of people learning, and why people got even more heavily involved with light therapy because of fat loss. It's not about weight loss, it's about fat loss,
right?
Losing fat. And what happens is that the tissue, the fat contents leak out, and and with our protocol, we move that fat away from the fat cells and eventually to the liver for use or elimination. 2 very different mechanisms. One is about mitochondria, and the other is about changing how porous the fat cell wall is. And so I just wanted to point out that, again, something else about how global this is. So we'll get people who will talk about losing a dress size without even trying, and that's not what they came in for. Then you'll have somebody that says, well, I'm already trim. I don't want to lose extra weight. Well, it doesn't do that. It only apparently affects excess fat. So you can imagine our practitioners are very busy because they're handling all these things, healing and fat and skin and all kinds of things.
Yeah. Dr. Carl, what about visceral fat?
That's what I was just getting ready to ask, Mariel.
Yeah.
Just Mariel,
Okay,
pretty quick,
yeah.
yeah.
So we talk about that a lot. And, remember when we get involved with anybody, we include many things, and training is a large part of that. And we have a whole thing about visceral fat. So yes, subcutaneous fat is the fat that you see. That's the fat that's kind of ugly on some people if they don't like it. But you can live your whole life being overweight. It will not necessarily, I mean, my father was overweight, never was trim, and he lived till he was 99. He died because he was old. That was it. So being fat with subcutaneous fat is not, it's not a problem with health as much as visceral fat. It's the visceral fat that's going to do you in. And what we see is visceral fat will also come down as well. Not as quickly as the subcutaneous fat, but it also comes down as well. So that's why we have these people getting body composition analyzers that give them the reading of what the visceral fat is. And
So you have done studies. Is that what you're saying? You have done studies where you have measured, whatever it is, measured.
I haven't done all the studies, but the studies have been done.
They have been done.
Yeah. So if you go to, I can't swear to this, but I think if you went to Google Scholar and put in red light therapy or photobiomodulation, and then the word visceral fat, you'll see a lot of studies on that.
Interesting. Very cool. Well, this has been so informative. Oh my gosh. I think that both Melissa and I are overwhelmed with your incredible information. I'm so excited to plug in. We just have to get a 220. I think it's a 220 plug for the light, your light bed, your trifecta light bed. And as soon as it is, both Melissa and I are gonna, I don't know, we'll get into
3 times a week. We're going to be meeting for tea. It's going to be
And
great.
It's 220 volt because it's not a toy. You can't just plug it into a regular outlet.
It's amazing.
This
It's
is
beautiful.
amazing.
It's a beautiful machine. So thank you so much for doing the studies that you've done on it. Thank you so much for coming on the show and talking about it. And we really look forward to it expanding and having more people be able to do this kind of thing. And especially because our concern is mental health. I love the fact that it's helping people with depression and, I think that, and suicide ideation. I mean, that's incredible. So Dr. Carl, thank you so much for coming on our show.
My pleasure.
This is awesome.
Can I point out again, trifectalight.com,
Yes.
and go to the contact us page.
Yes.
And then just put in, if you want to get to a bed that's near you, we have beds all over the country. You can just put in your address. We'll just put in your city and state. Make mention that they met me on this show. And if they have any questions, they can put that there as well.
Oh, that's awesome.
Fantastic.
You're amazing. Thank you so much for coming on. And we can't wait to get in that bed. Can't wait.
I love it.
Thank you for coming back. You're still here on Out Comes the Sun on Expansion Channel here on Dash Radio, Spotify, Apple, on Mars soon. We're everywhere you want to find us. This is Melissa Yamaguchi, and I want to bring you into a feng shui tip. We are getting ready to enter the year of the dragon. It officially begins February 10th, 2024. However, we're ramping up to it. And I want to give you just a quick overview of when studying feng shui, one of the things that we always look for is a balance of elements. Does each year have a proper balance of all 5 elements, which are fire, earth, metal, water, and wood? And are those elements balanced? And if they are, then you'll find that there's a pretty moderate year. Well, as life is, it's rare when it's 100% balanced. Usually something's missing or there's doubled up of something else. But this year, there's an over needed amount of earth energy. And what that typically means for us when there's too much earth energy is there's a stubbornness involved. There's a lot of movement on the earth. So we may find a lot of earth things happening, tsunamis and earthquakes and flooding. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not, what am I, Dallas Rains? I'm not going to sit there and just tell you good stuff. I'm here to tell you what's happening. Get ready, get out your galoshes, protect yourself. There's also something that we are missing in the chart, and that is water. No water. Well, water is needed for thinking. That's great, you're saying. So if nobody's thinking, who's running the world? Well, those of us who have the ability to be critical thinkers and to have logic on our side and to really weigh things out before emotionally reacting are going to come out. Cooler heads will prevail this year. Emotions running wild and crazy will get you nowhere. So you've got to be able to pull back, contemplate, think, do your research, really try to figure out what's happening before you respond or react. And because there's no water in the chart, literally anywhere, I looked high and low, there's a little bit hidden, but nothing that's obvious. It would behoove you to bring the colors of water into your life in some fashion, whether it's on your phone carrier, your case, whether it's on a purse that you like to carry, or your favorite shoes, or it's on something in your home. Now, water is typically in the direction of north. And when I do feng shui for people, I will find an area that needs to be strengthened. If it's in the northeast, for example, which is typically the patriarchal direction, southwest being the matriarchal, if there's a need to strengthen the father or that direction of the home, then you can put blue there. But by and large, water is in the north. So if you find that you need to strengthen maybe education for you while you're in school, you're learning, you're picking up new training with a new job, whatever the case may be, you're learning a new language, in the north area of where you study, it would be worthwhile to have a little blue knickknack on your desk, because we are going into the year of dragon. It might be really super cool if you could find a little blue dragon, put it on your desk while you're studying. But most importantly is to bring in the color blue, and it's a dark blue. It's anything from a royal blue to a deep, deep ocean navy blue or black. So bring in some of those colors to strengthen what's missing. We highlight what's missing. And if you say, I don't want to wear black, blue's not my color, invest in some blue or black underwear, would you please? And get over yourself, because nobody will know. And you can strengthen yourself. It's just an extra arm of energy, a layer of energy, if you will, to help you in this year when there is no water in the chart. So strengthen it up, boost up your area, and stick around, because Mariel's going to share some information about balance and nutrition, I'm sure. Something about your health. She's the queen of it. Stick around.
Thank you so much. I was telling you earlier today, and I told you, and I told you not to tell you. Don't tell her that when you talk about you always have a feng shui message, and you always study what it is. And I always listen to you, and that prompts me to look up something that I'm going to talk about. So today I didn't have to look it up because I know enough about it, but I wanted to talk about hydration and water, because water is so important, and it being an important thing energetically, it's also something that we need to understand nutritionally, nutrient wise, what it does for the body. Water is life. We are up of, as adults, probably 70% water. If you start to get old and dehydrated, it's like 60%. But when we're born, we're at 90 to 95% water. We are so rich in hydration. I look at my granddaughter and I think, oh my gosh, she's just like a little juicy bunch of, she's all water. She's delightful and delicious, but we need to be more hydrated, and it's so hard. And people don't really understand this whole idea behind hydration. It's not about, at the end of the day, I forgot to drink water, so I'm going to drink, 64 ounces of water right now before I go to bed. Bad idea. First of all, you'll be up all night. And secondly, what that does is it just floods you and you pee it out. And it's kind of like the rain on a dehydrated earth, right? When it rains on a dehydrated earth, it just washes, it doesn't absorb, it washes everything away. So actually nutrients get washed away. So the best way to hydrate your body is to sip water throughout, not sip, but take swallows, sips, this, that, and the other thing throughout the day. Now, that being said, I do a lot of water in the morning. I will take a large, 32 ounces, and I drink a lot of water. And then it's actually a Japanese thing, which maybe you can look into, but we learned it from a monk who it's about hydration. It's also ceremonial. But that being said, I do that, but I really think the best way to do your hydration is just, drink a 6 to 8 ounce glass of water every couple of hours. It's just the best way to stay hydrated throughout the day. Now, the quality of water should be good. You need to get good water. I highly recommend everybody out there to get a filtration system, at least on your sink in the kitchen. So here I am in the kitchen. We have underneath the sink, we have a filtration system that filters out all kinds of stuff. We're very lucky and fortunate to have rented a house that has a high filtration system throughout the entire house. So it comes in to the house and into the pipes, and it's getting filtered. That's a huge benefit to you. It's costly, but I think at the end of the day, it's less costly than, buying water in plastic, or, buying water in glass is wonderful. It's pricey. You start to look at those prices. Or if you can get a water company and test the water that it's good, and also they can deliver sometimes that water in glass. I really believe in drinking water out of glass. I do once in a while drink, water out of a plastic container, but I don't love it. And they're finding so much about how bad estrogen is coming out of it. There you go. Look at Melissa. She's such a good student. But anyway, they're finding so many bad things about plastic. So if you can minimize the plastic in your life, it's really good, because we don't need more estrogen. We don't need more, it's just not a good idea. And plus, we don't need more plastic in the ocean. I mean, if you realize, and I don't think I fully realize how much trash and actual plastic is in the ocean, how it's killing animals and all kinds of things. So anyway, back to hydration. Drink water all the time, every day. It's your best friend. It really is. It's so good. And as the funny thing is, when you talk, somebody at a funeral home, this will sound morbid, but I'm not trying to sound morbid, but in a funeral home, when they first get the body, it's all dehydrated. It looks, somebody who's died of old age, say. The minute they pump them full of these fluids, it look 20, 30 years younger, because it's all what happens with aging is we lose our fluid. Is why, our skin starts to go as we get older. So hydration is so important on so many levels.
Yep.
Drink water, drink good water, drink out of glass when you can. Try to minimize plastic. And that's my health tip for the day. That's all.
Hey, Mariel, our producer had a question. What about metal bottles? Slater had a question. What about metal?
Interesting. I think, gosh, I haven't done a deep dive into it, but we have a few of those metal bottles. I think there's no there's no leaching out of metal. I don't think there is.
Good.
Glass is preferable, but I don't think metal bottles are a problem.
Okay.
There are some metal bottles that they're making now that kind of have a somewhat glass lining, because I know glass, it can be problematic. They've got those rubber around some of them, but
Yeah.
some of them have glass internally inside a metal thing. I just think glass is probably a better choice, but if you can't do glass and metal, what you have, I think is a better option than plastic.
I'm just going to get a Daniel Boone flask.
There's that option as well.
Or drink out of my hat. I'm not sure.
Ooh, somehow I just, oh, I had an image. Like, thank you.
Like I'm gonna be like Fester. What is it? Who was it? He was like, yeah, doggy. Who was that on? Who was that?
Oh my
He's-
God. Oh, anyway.
Excellent tip, and it's right in line with what we need. We need water.
No, we need
Your
water.
special.
We just need so much water. And I love that this is a year that we have to wear blue because as you know,
Yeah.
Blue is my color. I'm
And
looking
I'm
for a
usually in
place.
black.
I'm actually facing northeast right now. I'm looking at the blue sky, which is slowly getting darker and darker because dusk is happening. But I'm thinking maybe I could do one fall in this northeast.
Yeah,
But
we're gonna get some blue
I
for
have
you.
to consult with my feng shui expert.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, I'm usually in black. I'm just the Johnny Cash of the year dragon. They call me. Yeah, we're ready. You and I are ready, and we want our audience to be ready. So get your blues and black, get your water, make this the best year it needs to be and can be for you.
Can be, absolutely. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. You're listening to Out Comes the Sun podcast. We are here because we are also supporting the Mariel Hemingway Foundation, which is a resource navigator. We are looking to raise money so that we can just make an app so that we can help anybody across this country needs to find the help they need for mental health. And we believe there's a recovery for everyone. We are not going to be doctors or anything like that, but we want to, that our desire is to raise enough money so we can become that place that you go to find what you need for whatever mental health issue is bothering you. And we can give you all kinds of options, whether it's holistic or psychiatric or medicinal, you need a rehab or whatever. That's the dream. If you go to the site, the Mariel Hemingway Foundation.org. Is that right? Yes. Mariel Hemingway Foundation.org. You will not see it there yet because we haven't raised enough money, but we're getting close. So thank you for supporting us. And we will very soon be able to say, woohoo, go there and you can find some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's awesome. Thank you. We'll see you next time.